Okay, so announcements. Welcome to our OWSA general meeting, and we do have a few announcements. This time of year, we start looking for people to be on the board, and some of our open positions are a secretary, education, vice commodore. So you could be doing this, what I'm doing next year, if you would like or so desire. So please look into the opportunities that present themselves. It's great for leadership and for getting to know some more co-members at OWSA, and a lot of opportunities there.
Yeah. Do you mind if I say something about that, Laura?
Yeah, please do, Jen. Jen is our Commodore, for those who don't know.
Yeah, I'm the current Commodore, and I just wanted to add to that. Being part of the OWSA board doesn't mean you have to know how to operate on a board or how to do the education director's seat perchance, or how to be a vice commodore. But I will tell you that in taking these positions, you will definitely learn a lot. You'll learn about teamwork, you'll learn about team building, you'll learn about being able to communicate with people better. So if you're trying to work on honing any of these business skills in your personal life, this is a place to do it without any fail. We're really encouraging. You can't really go wrong. So give us a try. Give Laura a shout if you're interested, and we'll give you a talk about all of what we have to offer.
Yeah, it's a great experience, and there's great people, as you know, because you sail with them and volunteer with them probably already. So that's a positive thing. Carol, I don't know if you wanted to make any announcements on upcoming training or anything.
Yes, I spoke with Allison Maison yesterday in person, and she looks like she's feeling better. We're working on some new dates for the engine maintenance class. So fingers crossed we'll get it in there somehow, but people are, again, they're, we all have lives and we travel and things like that. So that's what we're doing at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Naughty Drinks is this month, August, on the 20th. So mark your calendar. You'll be receiving notice in there from our social department. And that's pretty much it for, I guess we don't make announcements on the other beer can races, but there are a couple this month. And the board meeting is on the 30th. So I guess without further ado, I'm going to introduce Barry Kruijning. I'm not sure if anyone knows her, but she is the OWSA class register, and she generously donated her time as coming in as a new member this year. She does have a lot of experience with sailing, and she has sailed in, she loves to sail and kayak. Both of those are her passions, but her sailing goes back many years, over 50 years. She sailed in Europe on the North Sea, the Channel, and Atlantic, to Norway, England, France, Spain, offshore for 10 days or longer. She's logged over 20,000 nautical miles. She owned and skippered her own 30-foot boat for 5 years. She has racing experience on the Columbia, on J30 and J30s and Cal 20s for about 12 years, weekly racing. At OWSA, mostly on Wednesday night sails in the past when she was a member. And she would love to find a boat owner to do some cruising or racing with. Safety first, then fun, then winning. I like that logo. So our topic tonight, in her personal life, Barry is a leadership consultant and specializes in conflict management as well as leadership and communication as the big topics. The topic tonight is smooth sailing, 8 strategies to navigate the storm. Interpersonal communication skills are often overlooked in training for sailing, whether it be for a passage, cruising, or racing. Most accidents don't happen because of a lack of skills, but because of communication breakdown. In this workshop, we explore 8 key points that will help you navigate interpersonal situations on sailboats under pressure. And as we all know, we can always, those are good transferable skills to our regular life of communication. So we welcome Barry and thank her for volunteering to host this training session. So it's all yours, Barry.
Thank you, Laura. That was a wonderful introduction. That's lovely. So good to see a lot of familiar faces. And Christine, could you take over the admission of people into the group? That would be wonderful, because I'm going to share my screen. There's people waiting in the waiting room. So just there we go. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I have a little slideshow just as a visual aid, and we're going to, this is an interactive presentation, and sailing is just such a beautiful metaphor for leadership and for life, really. And we're going to actually really look at some of our interpersonal behaviors on the sailboat, and you know, where we all can improve. And I've really taken into account the nature of OWSA with different levels of sailors, really different experience, backgrounds, and also the fact that we are changing crews all the time. You know, it's hard. You always sail with either 1 or 2 new people usually, or many, but and every boat, you sail on many different boats, so that's different as well. So I really took that into consideration. Okay, so let me see. Let me go to my.
Should we change our screens to be speaker only, or?
It's really personal. So
Okay.
Yeah, it's whatever you want to do. Okay, let me see if I am. So I think we're on. Can you see this?
Yeah.
You can see the
Great.
slide? Okay, good. So yeah, I thought smooth sailing, 8 strategies to navigate storm together. Actually, I added later the word together, because that's really what it is about with OWSA, but also with sailing, except for the people that go solo. This is actually this is my sailboat, used to be my sailboat in the Netherlands, and where I did all these wonderful tours on to all the European coast, the coast around the North Sea and the Atlantic. Oh, now I have to find out how to advance. Here we go. Good. So yeah, here we go. A little bit about me, but Laura did a great job introducing, so I won't spend a long time on this, but I love water. I grew up around water in the Netherlands, and always lived on the water, always lived on a lake or a river, swimming, ice skating on natural ice. That's what I did in my winters, and sailing and kayaking from when I like 4 or 5 years old. And yeah, my educational and work experience is in law and human resources. And I started my own business in 2008 when the crisis was going on, and I had to let go of so many people, and I got totally burned out and was like devastated myself, and I couldn't do it anymore. And so I thought, I'm going for myself, and I would like to really advocate for the employees. So I've always worked with employees in business settings, and started out with conflict management, and then it morphed into leadership development while I was growing as well. I consider myself a global citizen. I'm from another country, and I work with clients globally. So I have, that intercultural aspect to my work, which is really fun. And I mostly now coach people, emerging leaders in organizations on developing communication effectiveness and executive leadership presence. So a little bit about me. And so then we'll go on, keep pushing the wrong button. Sailing, I figured out, I was thinking about this setting of OWSA, and it's like sailing together is really a journey, and there's 3 phases in it. So what happens before, during, and after we sail together? There are different dynamics, and there are things that we can do before we go sailing. There are things that we go do during sailing, and things that we go do after we have sailed, to make things smooth and to learn, to be a learning community, because I think that's one of the OWSA values. And of course, to have fun. So what I would like to have you do, and where we're going to experiment with this to see if I can get you into breakout rooms in a moment. So I'll go place you into small groups. And what I would like to have you do, because communication on a sailboat, strangely enough, starts on land. And these are the things that we do before we actually go sail together on a boat. So with your small group, I'll have you identify at least 5 things that need to be discussed on land that could make sailing together a breeze. There might be more than 5, but 3 to 5 things. Let me go out of here. And let me find you. Oops. Oh, here we go. Okay. Hold on one sec. I'm a little lost in my screens here. I'll stop the share. How's that? There we go. That's better. So I'll put you in breakout rooms, and let's see how many people we have. 21. So let's do about 5 groups or so. 6 groups. Yeah, we'll do 6 groups. And then I'll have you talk a little bit amongst yourself what needs to be discussed before we start sailing together. Okay, any questions? Okay, let's go. Here we go. And it's like 5 minutes or so, and then I'll call you back. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. And the idea is that you push on the okay. Cool. Sally, are you participating? Because I see your service might be a little bit tricky. But if you are, maybe you can push on the joining the room, the breakout room. Hmm. Mhm. Welcome back, everyone. Okay. I am wondering if I have access to a whiteboard here. Oh yeah, I know, I remember how that goes. Here we go. Okay, good. So, is everyone back? How did that go? I would love to hear from you what you came up with. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So I'd love to hear what you came up with, and then I'll record it on the whiteboard.
I think the first thing we thought of was the location of the boat.
Location of the boat, yeah. And everyone can just chime in, okay?
Who's your captain?
Yeah.
Who's at the helm?
We call that chain of command.
Uh-huh.
We have
What time and how
experiences.
long?
Sorry, what?
What time and how long, and the experiences of each one,
Yeah,
level of each one of the sailors.
yeah. Okay.
How's the weather that day?
Oh yeah, weather.
Important.
Mm-hmm.
Safety
What to
equipment.
bring,
Sorry, what?
what to bring,
Yeah.
clothes, hats, sunglasses,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, clothes and gloves and
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Yeah.
Tell people if they're new to look out for dock hazards.
Ah, yeah. Good. Yeah, because we have so many different levels.
So
People.
a big one on our group was safety. So everybody agree upon the safety needs of, we assumed when we got in our group, we assumed that it was an unfamiliar boat that we were chartering and that we were all strangers.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, those are great assumptions. Yeah, because that often happens in OWSA. Not all strangers, but it happens often that you don't know people. So you don't know their experience level and the comfort
Ooh,
level.
Introductions.
Yes.
Introductions.
Yes, really good. Introductions, and then especially experience. Someone already mentioned that over here of the different sailors.
Maybe how to get on the boat.
Yeah. Yeah, also important because that's different with each boat. So what does all this do when we talk about this ahead of time? What does that create for a team, for individual and for the team?
Rapport.
It sets expectations that everybody is on the same page with.
Yeah, it sets expectations. We're on the same page. I heard rapport.
Trust.
Trust is a big one, especially I like to know experience always when I have new people on my boat, because then I know, if I can trust them with a certain task or a certain command or anything. Yeah.
Right, so it builds trust because now you have an idea of what to expect for the rest of the night.
Yes. Yes, it does. Yes, and that is like super important when you start working together, and you start out sunny, but it could become a storm, metaphorically speaking. So good. What else? What else does it do? Anything else?
It builds confidence in the experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it does. Okay, so all good, really good things. So let me see. Okay, stop sharing. So let me go back to my oops, wrong one. Sorry. This one. And then Oh, sorry about that. I'm a little rusty with this. Okay, so we talked about trust, it built trust. So things that are, I wrote down a few other things also, like we talked about experience, who's in the crew. Also roles. I think it is also important to define roles and what everyone's comfortable with at their sailing level and what everyone wants to do, what you like to do. It's like, I used to be on foredeck because I was pretty agile and quick, and I really liked foredeck until I was in two little accidents where the mast came down. And then after that, unrelated, I broke my ankle, and I don't feel so secure anymore on the foredeck. So, it's like it's not a role that I would choose that fast. But anyway, so define roles with each other. That's something that you can do ahead of time. And also, maybe have this goes really far. This is when you're probably longer sailing with each other, like let's say a weekend or a weekend cruise or something like that. I would definitely talk a little bit about styles and needs that are related to style. And we're going to talk a little bit about that to give you some verbiage around that. And also talk about needs for talking through maneuvers, because everyone has a different style in that. And everyone, there are the main commands, but some people use less commands or use different commands or, let's see, I have to, okay, there we go. And make a plan together, set up the crew for success in that sense. So also it's important that from each other, like a style could be that I'm pretty direct on a boat, and once we get into sailing, I might not be as polished and as gentle as I am in person when there's no pressure. But when there's pressure on a boat, I can be pretty direct, and some people take that the wrong way. So I like to just say that, and I say, I can be pretty direct, I can be blunt. Please don't take it personally, and if it's a problem, we talk about it later, afterwards. So with regards to the plan and talking through maneuvers, I think it's important, especially when you go into a race, is are we calling out puffs? Who's calling out puffs? Who's counting down? Are we counting down for the race out loud, or who's doing that? What are we doing with tacks? Things like that. So where to sit on the boat. Last week I was on a new boat for me, and the helm was pretty long into the cockpit, and the helmsman was sitting really forward in the cockpit, and I really had to kind of like look for, okay, where am I sitting? What is a good place? Because I was grinding, I was like doing the jib and the tacks and stuff, and there was not really a place for a second body. So we didn't talk that through, and because we were all really experienced sailors, but still for me the boat was new, so I was like a little unsettled there. So it's important to these are very little things, they're subtle, but they really make a crew member feel at ease and belonging and comfortable. Of course, as a skipper, and when you know the boat, it's really know what works well for you as with a past crew. If you can share some of that experience, like I like to share, like this is working really well for me. If I talk through maneuvers, or if I do this or do that, handling of the equipment, position in the boat, for example, what we just talked about. So that's what I would do if I know what works well for me as a skipper. Within that plan is also like the element of own your own style. I already mentioned it a little bit. If you know you can get heated, say it up front. Say, I can get a little heated in the pressure of the situation. Let them know that you'll talk about it afterwards. And it could happen. We're all human beings, and it could just happen that we are getting heated. So also like things like say things like something, I point things out, don't take it personally. I just see it needs to be done. So I'm pointing it out. So these are things that I like to share if I'm in charge of a crew. Part of the plan is also, in my perspective, that once you're on the water, in case of a race, that you practice a few jives and a few texts together when you're with a new crew. So because everyone knows, where they are in the boat, what they're supposed to do, especially if you have some people that are less experienced. So you can talk through a procedure, a maneuver, and everyone has their own way of doing things. I know that I picked up some things in Europe that people are not doing here in the United States, or at least not as I've experienced. And when I do it, people freak out. So that's something that I bring up. It's like, this is when we tack, this is what I do. And does that work for you or not? So important to bring up those things. And then last but not least is agree on agree on commands that are accurate, precise, and brief, and that everyone understands. And while you're sailing, and this is for racing mostly, of course, not so much for cruising, but for racing, we like to use a minimum of words. So it's just we really like when it's getting a little bit more tense and a little bit more exciting, just really stick to the basics with each other. And this might not happen as much with OWSA, but if the wind picks up and you have a lot of sails up and the boat, let's say the boat feel overpowered and crew doesn't quite know what to do, it could get, in an instant, it could get tricky. Any questions about these three things that you can do before you go sail together? Any comments? I'd love to hear comments. This is interactive, so.
So are these are the things that you're saying before you get on the boat, or just before you leave?
So, before you can do it on the boat, before you leave. And mainly it's before you leave the dock. That's the idea. And that's why I say communication on sailboat starts on land, but a lot of people are gathering on the sailboat and then you can go over. It doesn't have to take long. It sounds like takes really long, but it's really a 10-minute conversation, and it's really good. I think if the skipper takes the responsibility to start this conversation, and also the more experienced crew, and it's just like a check-in. So yeah. Let's go see here. There we go. Then,
Katie. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. What?
There's a question that's in the chat room.
Okay, yeah, I'm usually not. So thank you for pointing that out. What did you learn in Europe that Americans aren't used to? Oh, yeah. So what I do and what I noticed is that there is a little bit of resistance to it, is that when we tack, and I'm doing the jib sheets, I'm at the jib sheet. When I tack, the moment I let the jib sheet go like about maybe 10, 12 inches. So it starts flapping. So the jib starts flapping. Then we turn through the wind. While we're in the wind, I actually tighten the jib sheet again a little bit. So the wind catches the jib sheet on the bow and pushes the bow over. And then once I feel that the boat is going over, because sometimes the tack is sometimes the tack is slow, or the waves are high, or the wind is not so, there's not much wind, then it's a really helpful way to, I don't know how you call it here, but to push the bow over just a little bit. And once you can feel the boat going, and then you just let it all go. But when I do that here, I've noticed like several times that it's misunderstood or misinterpreted, or so I've been yelled at. Yeah, let it go. And I'm trying to explain what I'm doing, and it's not translating somehow.
Hello, hi. So Barry, on our boat, we did that, didn't we? When you went with me on my boat?
Yeah, we did that. But there was a little bit of, in the beginning, I noticed that.
I backwind the foresail all the time.
Oh, is that what you call it? Backwind the foresail. Okay, well, I did it a few times on other boats, and it was like, what are you doing? Let go. So anyway, so I'm just mentioning it because we learn to do things in a different way sometimes. There is a universal language, but there are also other commands or other ways of doing things. Does that sound like yes, or how do you respond to that?
I agree with that. One of my favorite things to say is there are a million ways to get to the same place.
Yeah.
So just because somebody's doing something differently than you're used to, maybe it's time to learn something new. Maybe they have a shortcut.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we have there is a reason not to do it that way. Absolutely. Yeah, 5 skippers, 6 opinions. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So and there's absolutely reason not to do it that way. So it really depends on the conditions. Yeah. So very good. So the 4th strategy that I want to discuss, or have you discuss, or have us discuss, probably in the big group because we're not that many. 24, still a good group. Is like one at the helm. And I just really curious what you think of this. What makes a good helmsperson? And is the one at the helm always right? Is that true or false? And how does that work with the crew? When you're in a crew where you don't know all the members, and you're just, let's say, on a Wednesday night sail, and so what are the relationships there, and what do you do? So we can do this either in small groups, or we can do it in one big group. What would you prefer? One big group?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So what's your take on that?
Well, the whole boat is looking for deadheads to point out to the skipper in case they miss it. So that's a conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, can you explain that a little bit more, Jen, because I might not know that term.
Oh, so when we see a deadhead or a snare in the river, we're always pointing it out for the skipper in case they miss it. So that would show that we're all kind of at the helm.
Yeah. Okay. And so what does that do for the skipper when we do that, when we are pointing things out for the skipper?
Communicates.
Yeah, it communicates. It could really help the skipper because let's talk at the helm. Let's talk the helmsperson, which is, in my perspective, often a skipper, but yeah, in smaller boats, smaller settings. So it helps the skipper. It gets information because the helmsman needs to look, or the helmsperson needs to look so much at so many different things. What else? What other thoughts do you have?
Well, I said no because on my last 2 sails, I'm still very new and I had turns at the helm and I didn't know what I was doing. So that's why I shook my head. I was like relying on everyone around me to help me. So I knew I wasn't right.
Yeah, and that's the reality of OWSA, right? Yeah, that happens, and it's wonderful that you have that chance and feel how that feels to be in charge of the direction of the boat, really. Yeah, good point. So
Barry,
what
when
other, yeah,
when I when I do Wednesday night, I've been doing Wednesday night sail for about 10 years. And I find that when I have an experienced OWSA member at the helm, I can usually let her do whatever she wants to do, just as long as she's aware of what's going on around her, like barges coming up and down the river. If they're an inexperienced person, I usually sit next to them at the helm, so I'm always there to guide them if they need the help.
Yeah, yes, that's good. Yeah. So, you know, I did research on that, and it was like there are different schools of thought around this. And I noticed I've advanced the slide, so let's go back. There's different schools of thought. It's like, do we like 100% trust the skipper to know what's right and to take the final decisions and course decisions and all that? So, and I'm personally, I have to say, I'm going back and forth on it. And I think everything is resolvable with transparent communication. And that's the point here is like, let's talk about this. And especially in the OWSA setting where we work with people, that we give people a chance that are less experienced to be at the helm, to know what that feels like. And work together on that. If you're more professional, or not professional, but if you're in different settings, then there's one person in charge, and that's also really important, because when there's a safety issue, we need to have one person say what's going to happen. So it is important that this comes back to the roles and being transparent about the roles and expectations that you can talk about before. Okay. Does it make sense? I just would like to hear what you're thinking, because to be honest, I like transparent communication around this, because it's not always clear for me as a sailor.
I can say that there's a difference between when you're on a boat with a skipper who's the owner of the boat, and when you're on a boat when the skipper and the owner are two different people. Sometimes the two of them are there, and sometimes only one of them. So that's different situations.
Yeah, it is. So it is also context specific then. And I realize that, when we talk about outside situations and maybe some other teams. Yeah.
But with our boast program,
yeah,
when there are 4 OWSA members of nobody owns the boat, so those women can see where it would be great for the team to decide, is the person driving, is that person going to tell everybody what the bottom line is, or is there maybe someone on the boat who's the most experienced but she's not driving, but together they all decide who's going to make those choices if something goes wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And it needs to be established who is in that role to create order for the sake of safety. Right? And I think that's the bottom line, that we have that transparency of communication in there. Okay, we're feeling complete on this, or are there still other comments? If there's someone that can monitor the chat, that would be great, because when I have my slideshow up, I'm not always seeing the chat. Okay, let's move on. So talk a little bit about the crew and how the crew makes or breaks the team. And this is especially when things are going wrong. we're looking at. So the crew, it's the crew's job to keep the skipper focused, to keep the helmsman focused, or the helmsperson, I don't know what we're saying, but helmsperson, to keep them focused and to keep them concentrated on when, and this is a racing situation, right? Or cruising when the things get tense a little bit with regard, that maybe the wind is picking up unexpectedly, or, you know, when things get a little bit. So the crew can provide the skipper with the right words of encouragement, especially in a race. It's really important that that the crew is focused on keeping the skipper out of that psychological kind of circle of where he or she can no longer focus, because that happens sometimes. That there's so much happening, and then the focus might be gone. So you can do that by encouragements, like, oh, we're doing great, this race is going great, or we are 2 boat lengths ahead, or whatever it is. You can also do that as crew to set a smaller achievable goal. So you can say, like, okay, let's just get the boat in front of us, and then we'll get the next one. So, but let's first set a smaller achievable goal to help the skipper focus again. So the crew has a really important role in working together on I would say skipper and helmsman here. I am kind of using interchangeably right now. And the crew should be feeding information to the skipper about puffs and about lulls and about other boats and all that. So you work on that together. The crew can also keep the skipper focused and encouraged, and the whole crew focused, to highlight what's working. So really focus on what's working. Even though it might not be a huge game changer, you can point out, like, oh, we just gained a lot on that last tech. Things like that. So it's really about positive communication, positive, encouraging communication, to keep things going well and going smooth. And then, I already mentioned, provide key information and about the regatta or about other boats. And what other things can a crew do to keep the spirits up, to keep everyone focused? What are some other things that people can do?
Talk about sailing and not about whatever's going on in your life.
Yeah. Focus on sailing, on the maneuvers, on the wind, the elements. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ask for help when you need it.
Ask for help. Yes, absolutely. And that's a really big one. I would think, especially with OWSA crews, please ask for help when you need it. Yes. What other things can a crew do to make the team?
Be willing to help others when they need it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yes.
So be versatile and cooperative.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe explain something to someone who's less experienced.
Yeah, explain something like clear and yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I was going to add checking in. If you've noticed that someone has been in one position or doing one job for a long time, like say they're at the helm and they've been there 45 minutes, how are you doing? Are you happy staying there? Do you want to switch? Do you want relief?
Yeah.
Checking in on everyone's roles.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you do get tired and you can lose focus because of that. And some people might not recognize that, or some people might be, might be hesitant to ask for help and say, okay, yeah, I've been assigned this role, so now I'm it. And yeah, so good point. Thank you. Anyone else?
ask if anyone needs something from down below. If you go below,
Yeah.
sometimes someone wants their camera or some water.
Yeah, we did that when we were offshore sailing, because I remember I got really sick when I went down below. So it was for me really a matter of asking for food and asking for help in that department, because I said I'm not going down below because I get so sick. But yeah, offering to bring something. Great. Anything else? Let's move on. Then I'd like to talk about, let's see, we're doing fine, right? What we have until about like what, 10 to 8 or so, or quarter to 8?
Yeah, we have plenty of time.
Okay. I would like to talk a little bit about how people interact with each other in a predictable way. And this is according to Mr. Leary. And I'm going to walk you through like a little model first. It's a little theoretical, but we'll explore that, what it means for our crews and for our experience. And there are two ideas around this model. First of all, that each behavior that we have, each behavior on a boat that we have, or any behavior in any situation, is adequate in some situations. When it's overused, they can hinder. So keep that in mind when we're talking about that. So for an example, we can have the behavior of leading. You know, some of us are natural leaders, or some of us are when we are put in a role as a leader at the helm, for example, and we have the experience and we are the leader. It could, if we overuse that, it could become an aggressive, or assertiveness as a leader could become aggressive. And I think unfortunately we might all have been exposed to some form or shape of that type of behavior. So that's something to keep in mind when we're walking through this. So there's two dimensions in this model, and so the one dimension is above and one dimension is, two dimensions. This is the dimension, and on one spectrum we're above and one spectrum we're below, which means that this is about the attitude that we have to get towards each other. It's about who takes the lead. The person that is in the above spectrum is taking the lead. Person that finds themselves in the below spectrum is more submissive. So this is about, this spectrum is about the attitude that we have towards each other in our behaviors. Then there's another dimension, which is this one, is opposed and together. That one is illustrating or bringing to, it makes visible the relationship that we have together, that we have towards each other. We're either together, so we either have a team spirit, we're working together, we have a focus of we're doing this together, or we either have all the way on the other end of the spectrum, because these are spectrums that we are in, we are opposed. So we are not agreeing, we are doing our own thing because we know that's the right thing, and we're just, stuck in that. So opposed behavior or attitude really prevents or hinders cooperation to find a collective solution, to find a solution that works for everyone. And then together is really promoting that. Okay, so those are dimensions. Then this is the windrose of Leary. I think what it's called rose, but for me, it looked like a windrose. So the idea is that above and below behavior, so there's the leading and the submissive behavior, to call it like that, that provokes each other, it triggers each other. So it's like the leaders in the above section are provoking that other people follow them. So leaders and followers. In the opposed and together dynamic, there, the behaviors there are amplifying each other. If I'm opposed to an idea and I really stand my ground and I really stick in my position, there is a very predictable behavior from the other party, which is that they're also opposing. Same with together, if I'm more focused on teamwork, that triggers more teamwork. That facilitates, amplifies the same behavior. So opposed and together amplify each other or amplify the same behavior. So opposed amplifies opposed and together together. Above and below triggers each other. So when I have like a really strong leader, then I can naturally fall into a following role. So what does this mean for our sailing? So I'll have you draw this cross on a piece of paper if you have it. So grab a piece of paper and just draw this same cross. And let me actually go through this. So let me first walk you through the different behaviors before we start doing this little activity. So there's 4 quadrants. In the above together quadrants, when you think about above together, how does that feel to you energetically? Feels good? So above together, yeah. So those are the above behavior is leading, and in that same quadrant, the together is helping. So that this is a very productive place to be in. Then I'm looking for some other notes. Okay, here we go. Then the next quadrant is together. When we're in below together, we cooperative. But when we're more on the below end of the spectrum, we become dependent. Dependent means that we're going to ask for advice. We're going to ask for a cooperative, of course, means we're looking for a solution together. Okay. In the opposed, yeah, Carol.
Just cooperative and dependent. Not as I would wonder about asking advice or just deferring.
Also, yeah.
Rather than, because asking advice is not necessarily not helpful, but just deferring deferring yourself back.
Yeah, and asking for permission. It's asking for permission. All these behaviors, I want to have you keep in mind, all these behaviors can be functional in certain situations. And they can be really dysfunctional in other situations. So let's go on. It might still be a little bit more heady, but we're getting into a little activity that it might be a little bit more clear how this can apply to what we're doing on the boat. So the opposed behavior in a below setting is a resisting. Is someone that absolutely resists any ideas, and they're actually they're more in like the aggressive, resisting, punishing kind of mode. And then we have above opposed is competitive. That's the leading opposed behavior. So what I'll have you do in the cross that you made is I have you imagine that you are in the put yourself in the opposed above quadrant, the competitive aggressive quadrant, and think about the day that you felt that way, or a moment that you felt that way. Or if you have never felt that way, try to imagine that you felt competitive and somewhat aggressive, a little on edge. So now I'm going to give you a sentence. And I would like to have you notice what your reaction is, how you react to this sentence while you're in that competitive aggressive mode, okay? Okay, so I'm going to tell you, move the jib over faster. Move it faster. So what do you feel? What's coming up for you?
Defensiveness.
Defensiveness. Mm-hmm. What else?
Anger.
Anger. Mm-hmm. Also sort of aggression, right? Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of fear.
Fear. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else? Anyone else?
Embarrassment.
Yeah. Okay. So now I'll have you put yourself in the below together quadrants. The cooperative, dependent, together. We're doing this together. And I tell you to move the jib over faster. Faster. So what is your response here? How do you experience this sentence?
Helping the boat
You're helping the boat? Mm-hmm.
if you perform that way.
Uh-huh.
Feel like my feelings are being hurt.
Hurt or heard?
Hurt.
Hurt. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe frustration.
Sorry, what?
Frustration.
Oh, frustration. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That is all like below behavior. Do you notice that? So it's there what Leary says is that there is this predictability that if there is above behavior, we trigger below behavior. If there's opposed behavior, we amplify that behavior as a reaction to each other. So knowing that is like, how can you use that in situations? Knowing that on a boat that we have these, we just have these reactions, but how we are reacting to others, and what can you do with this information? Any ideas? So when you are aware, these are like often unconscious reactions. So unconsciously, when somebody is opposing us, we are opposing them back. So that's unconscious usually. Or when somebody has like really competitive behavior, we might get more withdrawn or dependent. But when we have become aware of it, we can actually make a different choice. And we can actually mirror behavior, or if I'm aware that if you're opposing, you're like in this aggressive resisting mode, I don't have to go there with you. I can go to a more cooperative mode. Because if we keep amplifying the same behavior, we're not getting anywhere. But if I counteract it with a more cooperative, a more together focus, then there's something happening also for the opposed person, and it's like, wait a minute, what just happened? And they usually snap out of it.
Question, Barry?
Yeah.
Hey, like, can you give us some examples of how you would do that? Like, I've seen like basketball teams do that kind of thing that you're talking about, you know, like they have a couple of bad plays and then they kind of jazz each other up. But what are the words you would use to get people on the cooperative side?
Yeah, so I would certainly use words as we and together, because those are really, there's a lot of energy around words, the words that we use. So it's a focus of, let's do this together. Let's look at a solution together. And, you know, there's a part of really acknowledging what's going on for the other person. You don't have a whole lot of time if things get really rough. So these are typically things that we talk about afterwards. But in the situation, you can ask someone that's more aggressive, resisting, you can ask, okay, what are we going to do together? How are we going to solve this together? And what's the next best thing? Or how can I be of support? How can I support you in this situation? You know, that's the helping side. Does that help? Like what support do you need?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I hear a little bit of understanding and not taking things personally also.
Yes. Yeah. And it's really, it requires a level of maturity and a level of awareness to do this. And it is, the idea is that we can stimulate a certain behavior. You can change your own behavior to do so. If you want more teamwork, you are focusing on together helping cooperative behavior. So, you know, let's say there's a team member that always asks you what to do, which is the dependent team member, crew member. They always ask you, you know, what to do. Let's say as another crew member, you can actually stimulate leading behavior, can actually stimulate that this crew member steps up to the plate by meeting them in that dependent behavior, right? Instead of being the leading, stepping back into your leading role, you meet them where they're at. In the above below, you meet them where they're at, right? In the opposed together, you go to the other side. So in the above below, you meet them where they're at and you ask them questions back. It's like, okay, well, how do you think you would solve that problem? Let's say, okay, so we need to go upwind to that buoy. So how do I do that? I don't know how to do that. And then as a above person, you can say, well, this is how you do it. But there's no learning there. And there is, you can adjust your behavior and say, well, let's talk this through. How do you get there? What is needed for that? If you have the time, of course, right? So you can you show some below behavior yourself, and that will push the below person above to more leading position. See how the dynamic works in relationship to each other? Because then they say, oh, now I have to think for myself and now I have to make that decision. How do I get to that upwind buoy? Yeah. Of course, if they really don't know it, I mean, you tell them. But sometimes people always ask for advice, and sometimes they really do know, but they don't trust themselves or they like to follow. And it's just really interesting how you can, you know, play with that dynamic. So you can basically influence someone's behavior with this. It's a form of influence. Does it make sense? Okay. Any other questions about this? Any other comments? We're at 7:40. Okay, let's go on. I'm happy to talk more about this if you have questions about this, how this plays out, okay? Because it's just an introduction to this. It's kind of a bird's eye view of this model, but I thought it would be interesting to see how you can actually, with your choosing your behavior, you can actually amplify a behavior or have someone behave in an opposite way. So. Okay, so there's another dynamic going on between crew members, and that's the dynamic of introvert and extrovert. And let me see if I can do the gallery. Let's see a show of hands who are considering themselves as an introvert, introvert. Let's do introvert first. It's like you're somewhere on the left side, left half of the spectrum. I see some have, some, yeah, okay, you can raise your hand too. Okay, and then there are a whole bunch of people that are more on the right side of the spectrum, more on the extrovert side. Do we have some extroverts in the room? Yeah, cool, okay. Hi, Kim. So we are different in our dynamics, definitely. And that plays out on a boat in different ways. So let me make this a little smaller. Okay. That plays out in different ways. So an introvert typically asks a lot of questions. They want to know details. They will ask you a lot of questions, especially if they're new on the boat. Then, so they need more information, typically. They need more details. An introvert is what we call a deep thinker. Introverts are responding a little bit slower typically than extroverts. They need to think things through a little bit more before they can make the right decision. So they just generally have a little bit slower pace. And that plays out on the boat too. You will see that. I'm an introvert. I like to know the details. Where are we going? What are the commands? Where do you want me to sit in the boat? I just want to know. And so I ask these things because I want that to be clear. I want to know what's expected of me. An extrovert is probably more comfortable in giving orders and telling people what to do instead of asking a question. An introvert has the art. An introvert has the art to say something about what, telling someone what to do in a question form. So introverts will do that. Would you please do this or that? Would you mind? While an extrovert would say, pull that sheet or whatever, let it go. So there's a very different dynamic there. An extrovert takes quick decisions. Usually, they have typically a vision. While introvert focus. This is very generalization. So introvert focus sometimes more on the details. An extrovert has more bigger vision. Is definitely a fast thinker. An extrovert, sorry, is more out there. They have a louder voice, which on a boat is critical. Could be critical. If you have an introvert that's soft-spoken and that person is a skipper or a helmsperson, as an introvert, we need to stretch a little because that could be a problem if you are soft-spoken on a boat when there's a lot of wind going on, a lot of flapping, and it's like, what did she say? What is she saying? So extrovert naturally has these like bigger gestures and a louder voice, faster pace, quick on their feet. So how do you see that play out on the boat? Introvert, extrovert. I see Danielle raised a hand. I'm not sure if that's from the last thing or that you want to say something, Danielle. Okay. So how do you see that play out?
She says it was from the last thing.
Okay.
Well, I am a little surprised about the introvert asking a lot of questions. I feel like I'm definitely more on the extroverted side of the spectrum, but because I'm new, I'm
Yeah.
going to ask a lot of questions just
Sure.
out of necessity. So I feel like that's
Yes.
just doesn't align with, you know, what's being presented here, but I know it's kind of generalized.
It is generalized, and I agree. This is the extrovert. The one that I'm kind of sketching here is the extrovert that knows what she's doing.
Okay.
And
so,
yeah.
yeah, so I do see that as sort of, you know, quick kind of orders, not the like maybe, oh, let's check in how everybody's doing, or slower pace. Like, you know, it's more just like quick kind of commands, maybe on the extroverted side. The introvert might just be quiet, focused.
Yeah. True. And what I said, the introvert will probably craft their command or their order in a question form, or says the statement with a question mark at the end, going up with their voice. Well, it's still an order, but they will just phrase it differently.
Shall we please tack now?
Yes, something like that, Carol. It doesn't sound like you at all, but yeah. No, so it's just something to keep in mind. And again, these are generalizations. Yeah. Any other insights on this, or ideas about this, or experiences that you had?
Sometimes the something you were describing, Barry, when there's a lot of action and a lot of things going on, you will see the introvert kind of slide over towards the middle a little bit and get a little more expressive and a little more I don't know, just speak out maybe a little bit more. But the extrovert, I hardly ever see the extrovert slide back towards the middle. The extrovert is just always sort of right out there for you. It's just, they're just there.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think it's highly influenced by your confidence in
Yes.
the situation.
Yes, it is.
Somebody may be more confident on the racing than another person, but cruising, it might be the flip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, and still it does have to do with experience, but there's still this level of because I'm an experienced sailor and I still like information. I was on a boat last week with 3 new people, a new boat, and I was racing. And I would have liked more details. I would have liked more information. I was going with the flow. I can do that because I do have a lot of sailing experience, and I'm an observant person. That's another thing about introverts. We observe really well. So I was kind of, scoping out the roles and the rules of the boat while we were going. But ideally, I would have liked more detail and more information about how are we doing this? How are we going to work together in this race? I felt like I was kind of thrown into it. But because of my experience, I was fine with it. So that's a good point, Gigi. If I didn't have that experience, I probably would have been very apprehensive, insecure, or whatever it was, or not knowing what to do. Yeah. Yeah, I see another hand.
I have thank you for sharing these tools with this group. One of the things I really like about being in this group is we really focus on building a dialogue together so that we can foster a culture of together.
Yeah.
I have a story where I invited 3 male colleagues on my boat, where I was the skipper And our usual connection or communication, I'm the below together quadrant. However, in this environment, as it relates to sailing, I was the most knowledgeable of the team.
Yeah.
However, I had a hard time in that group playing the above role. However, with this group of women, I feel very comfortable in both roles because we've practiced encouraging each other to feel comfortable in all of those roles. And I was curious if you had any recommendations, because, you know, if you have the most knowledge and you withhold that knowledge, it can be a safety hazard for your other team members, regardless of gender or whatnot. So I was just curious if you had any notes, how to empower us to feel confident taking on roles in front of individuals that we are usually submissive around.
Yeah. Yes, I think it comes really down to having that conversation. Communication starts on land, and having a conversation, setting up the expectations and the roles, and creating credibility there. So sometimes you have to work on it a little bit harder than with other crews. With OWSA, probably way less than with a new crew with male participants, and maybe also have some level of experience. And so this comes down to transparent communication. It's like, and I assume that you're the boat owner.
Yes.
Yeah, so you're the boat owner, and just you lay out the roles and the rules, and this is what the expectations are of the crew. And this is what I will say, and this is what I will do in certain situations. This is what you can expect from me based on my experience. And then you can say, you can build your credibility. You can, let them see what your experience is in a few sentences. And really also let people know what you want from them, what you expect from them, not only what they can expect from you, but what you expect from them as a crew member. It's really important that they understand the role that they're in. And I don't know if this is helpful for you, but I think transparency is really important, and having that conversation up front, it's all about how you set it up. It's all about how you set yourself up and your crew for success.
So set up expectations and the shared mission and goals and a pathway to accomplish that.
Exactly.
Can be the together fostering. Okay. I like it.
And
awesome.
you set the tone of the evening or the event. You do that as the person in charge.
In debrief, my learned lesson was, how does my self-doubt really serve the team? And I think that's where I'm working on, but I really appreciate this tool. It's giving me a lot to reflect on. Thank you.
Okay. So I think we have a couple more minutes. So the other points that are really important, 2 points, is, how did we do? Create a learning team. We want to create a learning environment. So we are debriefing with each other after the race. I've done that a few times with, I do it regularly, but recently I think Laura, we did that when we were sailing with Laura and Lita. We did a debrief, and we all three had something like, oh yeah, this feels really good. We want to do this. We really talked about what went well. We talked through a little bit of maneuvers that we did, one thing or two things that we could improve on. And we also we give each other feedback. And when you give a person feedback, you ask for permission if you can give someone feedback, especially when, as a more experienced person, you give someone that's less experienced, you give them feedback, you just ask for permission. It's like, you know, I would like to give you some feedback. Is that okay with you? And you give feedback on a behavior. You leave your judgment out of it, just like really you give feedback on neutral, observable behavior, which is behavior that is without any judgment, without any filter on it, basically. So really, like when you let the jib go in that tack on the Washington side, that's the behavior, right? So, and then you talk about, in the feedback, you talk about what's the impact of that. What was the impact on the behavior? Well, what the impact was when you let the jib go, we couldn't make the turn. We didn't tack fast enough. So we were one leg, whatever it was, whatever the impact was. And then you make a request of next time, please wait for this or that command, or so, you know, so that's how you can play with the feedback. So it's neutral, observable behavior, communicate what the impact was of the behavior and what you would like to see next time. Also, you can also do this with behavior that has a positive effect, that people also love to hear that, right? And then I think with Laura, the last time we went sailing, we talked through maneuvers as well. And it was really helpful because we all have different levels, and it was just really fun. And you create a learning environment with it. Okay, so take the time for it. That's the message here. Take the time to debrief after a night of sailing together. And then, of course, step number 8 is celebrate, especially when you had a race, but especially when you had a race that ended well, you celebrate. And that is the end. I think we were right on the dot of 8 o'clock. I don't know if there's time for questions, so we had some opportunity for questions in between, but I don't know if there's any other questions.
I have one comment from the chat.
Oh.
And thank you for that talk. That was really awesome.
Okay.
Communicate. We can all talk a little more. We've all been kind of in a couple of years of seclusion. It's time to remember, you know, we're all here in the same place. But yeah. Carissa said, great advice to set up leadership expectations on land.
Mm-hmm.
And Shancy says, great presentation, Barry. This was very informative. So we're off the chat. Anybody wants to say anything?
Yeah.
Feel free to speak.
I have a question about feedback. You were just talking about that.
Yes.
It seems like your recommendation is to focus on maneuvers, activities, as opposed to an experience where someone, the way they communicated their frustration was very aggressive and like with some cuss words, and like I didn't give them feedback afterwards about their communication. So do you recommend doing that as part of your debrief? Like, hey, when this happened and you reacted in this way, but then what do you make it about? Because I don't want to make it about like, oh, that made me feel ashamed, or like I let down the team. You know, you want to make it about more,
yes,
you know, the group success or something.
Definitely. Well, you talk about the feedback goes beyond maneuvers and the technical stuff. It is also about interpersonal behaviors, of course, because you want to create a learning environment and that as well, and you want to become a better team or a better team player. And so it is when you give feedback on someone that is behaving in an aggressive way. So aggressive is different for everyone. What someone feels like aggressive could be assertive or direct for another person. So aggressive is a judgment, is something that you put on there as a filter. But what did you see or hear this person do? You heard him use cuss words. You heard him raise his voice. You heard him, or you saw him making big gestures, or like gestures like this or so, like you can even give an example like this gesture if you saw that. Then you communicate the impact, and the impact could be on you. It could have an impact on you, the team, the safety, the boat, the whole experience. So whatever it is, an impact could be feeling. It could be, when you use these cuss words and when you use this loud voice, I felt afraid and I was uncertain about how the team would respond, and or whatever it is, whatever the impact is for you, you communicate. And next time I would really like it if you could take a deep breath before you say something before you use a cuss word or before you start raising your voice, right? Does that help?
Yes, and it was not a him.
Oh,
I just noticed you went.
sorry. That was just as a matter of speaking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that does help.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Good. Well, thanks so much for staying so long, and yeah, for participating the way you did. It was wonderful to hear some of your insights, because this is always for me also a learning experience, presenting something like this. So I'm here as a student as well. So we all know so much together. So that's always really cool. Okay.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, you're welcome. Laura, you're on mute. I see you talk, but you're on mute.
Yes, thank you so much for all of the useful information, the practical, hands-on, living kind of interactions and ways that you can be more effective as a communicator and as a human being. And the useful information was very insightful. So appreciate your expertise and your sharing of your knowledge. It was very helpful.
Good.
So
okay, great.
Thank you.
Well, good to see everyone, and I'll see you out on the water.
Thanks, ladies. If you haven't seen the newsletter, check it out. And if you want to be part of the OWSA team, let us know.